is the Banner Baseball Show. Paul Mancano and Andy Kostka coming to you on a Monday morning, live on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. You could be listening to us after the fact on any of your favorite podcast platforms. In any case, give us a like, a thumbs up, a nice review, all that good stuff. Coming off a weekend in which the Orioles took 2 of 3 from the Seattle Mariners. But Andy, I think the highlight still has to be Kevin Brown on the mic, entertaining the good people by singing Blink 182.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen him in what is that, Waltz in Canton. I've seen him in there, after hours. He has a baby now, but at 2 a.m, he's still there grinding, practicing, putting in those, the stuff that you don't see behind the scenes. That effort, the practice he puts in to perfect his Blink 182 karaoke acumen. It really came in handy on Saturday, and I think that was probably the highlight of Baltimore's weekend.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. I've never seen him at Walton. I would love it. It would be a great thing. But so he's a good dad, and he has a couple of days off here, so good for him.
He's not out at 2 a.m. He's probably sleeping at 2 a.m. He's a grown man. But that was probably at least the highlight of Saturday, I think you could say, because of the 3-hour rain delay and then the loss.
Yeah, I mean, that was well, I was off Saturday, so I had a great time. But, Danielle did not have a great time covering that baseball game. I was there just as a casual observer of baseball. And I was more aggrieved that they cut off beer sale at 7:30. We didn't know, they didn't announce that, which is good for everyone driving home 3 hours later, but not good for, everyone wants to, have a cold one with some peanuts. And that's how you watch baseball, but it wasn't meant to be.
So did you just sit at Pickles for 3 hours before you came into the stadium?
Well, if we're going to get into it, we'll get into it. No, I went to Checker Spot Brewing first. Shout out Checker Spot. If you haven't been there, please go. Great place, good people, good beer. It was packed on Saturday, which is great to see. A lot of dogs, pet dogs. Had a pint or two. Plead the fifth on how many pints at the end of the day. But it was great. Then went to Pickles, and Pickles was Pickles with Pickles. It's a good spot. Can't go wrong. And then you go in the stadium, watch a pretty good baseball game. Grayson Rodriguez was excellent on Saturday, and then the bullpen faltered behind him, which is too bad for Grayson's. Otherwise, would have gotten a win. But
yeah,
it was a good day overall.
Oh, good. Well, today we're going to be talking about that 3-game series against the Seattle Mariners. We're going to be talking about Gunnar Henderson going off at the plate like he has been doing. We're going to talk about Craig Kimbrel reestablishing himself as the Orioles closer in the series finale. Also talk about the potential of a 6-man rotation and a couple guys who got DFA'd in the past week. But Andy, let's start first and foremost with Jorge Mateo, because you tweeted the other day that he has very quietly taken over as the Orioles' second baseman after Jackson Holliday gets DFA'd on DFA'd. He got optioned on April 26th.
Imagine
DFA on my mind. Can you imagine the state of Birdland? Wow, that would be utter insanity. Gets optioned on April 26th. So there's this hole that's created at second base, and the Orioles turn to Jorge Mateo, not in every single game out of the gate, but he has slowly earned more playing time because of how he has played. And Andy, I wrote an article on the BaltimoreBanner.com where you can subscribe $1 for 6 months about a year ago when Jorge Mateo was not hitting well. And when Joey Ortiz was hitting the cover off the ball at AAA Norfolk about the possibility that the Orioles might have to DFA Jorge Mateo and make room for Joey Ortiz. Now, Joey Ortiz is having a quality start to his season out in Milwaukee. But I'm going to go ahead and say I was wrong about Jorge Mateo, and the Orioles were right in giving Jorge Mateo more time to establish himself. We really saw it at the very end of the season last year in the ALDS when he was one of the better hitting Orioles in a series where the offense was not phenomenal. And it's carried over into the season. We're a month and a half in. Jorge Mateo is top 5 on this team in WAR.
I love that. I think Mike Elias might take a gif of you saying, I was wrong, the Orioles were right.
I mean, you could say that about any number of
play it on loop. No, that's it. You are right. I mean, he has Jorge Mateo has played a lot at second base lately. Obviously, he's really played there most of the year, but has looked so steady there. And the infield defense from you have Gunnar, which you know what Gunnar brings at shortstop, and then you have somebody with as much range as Jorge Mateo at second base. I mean, it's quite a up the middle defense Baltimore has, if including Cedric Mullins in center field. I mean, you usually want your best defenders up the middle, and they have them, and it's been amazing to see. But what's fascinating about Jorge Mateo is, I mean, of course, last year, got off to a great start to the season and then kind of fell off after that. It'd be really interesting to see how long he can kind of prolong this, and for his sake, obviously, to be as long as he can. But he's not striking out as much as he did. His whiff rate is the lowest of his career, about 20%. So those are tangible things that you look at and say, okay, he's not chasing the slider, which he so frequently last year. I remember when he was in a slump, it was that slider away would just be an automatic strike, basically.
Yeah.
And we don't see him. If he is swinging, it's not the end of the world because he can take the next one. In 2023, he was throwing 3 of those and he strikes out. And this one, he can adjust more quickly in the middle of an at bat. Maybe he is swinging through one of those tough sliders on the outside, but he's adjusting quickly. Hard contact is there. Great fielder, as everyone knows. He steals bases. It is interesting just because, this was when Jackson Holliday came up, it was conventional wisdom that he was the everyday second baseman, but it's really Mateo's job to lose now. And, it's going to be interesting to see how long they're willing to say, and I imagine if Jorge Mateo keeps playing this way, very long is the answer. But, you keep Jackson in AAA, and because you don't technically have a hole at that position. You have a second baseman every day who's playing great defense and is also hitting well. 269 maybe it is, or he's up in the high 200s. Oh, I'm getting a FaceTime. I won't take that. It was my girlfriend is calling. She just woke up. She's in Alaska.
Wow, I thought it was David Rubenstein checking in.
That'd be great.
Asking if he could throw you another Orioles cap.
That he loves doing that. I think it's
his thing. Does he do anything else?
It's his favorite thing. He threw some koozies actually on Saturday as well.
That's big. Wow.
So props to him for a little
expanding his arsenal,
diversifying his assets, as he would say, as a private equity guy.
Really.
Yeah, but sorry, I got off the rails with that one. But yeah, no, Jorge Mateo is looking, as well as anyone can hope at this point.
Yeah, and I am a little bit concerned about falling for it again because last year, you may recall, his April was scorching hot. He hit 347 with an OPS over 1,000. He had 6 homers in the month of April, and then he hit 179 the rest of the way. The only homer he hit for the rest of the season was inside the Parker. So I am a little bit concerned that we're going to be falling for it again. But the Orioles are going to keep giving him opportunities, like you said, Andy, because that hole opened at second base, and he has filled it more than anybody could reasonably expect. I mean, he had 0.7 F-WAR all of last season. He already has that same amount through the first month and a half of the season. He, like you said, he's cut down his whiff rate. He's playing solid defensive second base. He's started 4 games in a row at second base. He started 7 of the last 8 at second base. So he has earned that kind of playing time. And you're not going to bring up Jackson Holliday to make him a part-time player. And right now, you can't really justify how Jackson Holliday went 2 for 34 in his first taste of the big leagues. You wouldn't necessarily be able to justify Jackson Holliday coming right up and starting over Jorge Mateo, given how Mateo has been playing.
Yeah, you couldn't justify it at this point. And it's a great problem to have.
Yeah.
And somebody commented on YouTube that they split time in Anchorage, Girdwood, Homer, Ketchikan, and I'm not even going to pronounce the last one. But that's a shout out to Alaska. But sorry, I guess you guys don't see the YouTube comments that I got to see on my screen. But yeah, Jorge Mateo is pretty much deserving of this spot. And at the moment, the next guy up, when Kobe Mayo recovers from his rib injury, I suppose would be the next guy up. He can play, third base, a little bit of first base if you need him, but really third base is his staple. And maybe Ramon Arias, who's really, Ramon has not played very much, very, very much at all the past, 2 weeks. And his batting average is sub 200, I believe. So, he would probably be the odd man out if Baltimore does make a promotion. But you have to like, the status quo at this very moment. That they have, they have an offense that, there's some off nights, but most of the time you're going to get, 4 plus runs a game, which pretty much can take with the starting rotation. And there's really not too much to be worried about right now in Birdland. Yeah. So I guess we could just end the podcast after that.
There we go. Well, let's talk about what is going well, and that's Gunnar Henderson hitting the cover off the ball. 15 homers. That ties for the league lead with Kyle Tucker. He already has 3 WAR, according to Baseball Reference. And think about it. This is a time 2 years ago, Adley Rutschman was called up, May 20th, May 21st, and went on to have the phenomenal rookie season that he had. Gunnar Henderson has already put up ridiculous numbers in the month and a half to start the season. You wrote an article this morning for the Banner about Gunnar Henderson's ridiculous age 23 season. Doesn't technically turn 23 for another month, but just putting it all in perspective, it sometimes can get lost because of just how steady he is. But this kid is so young and he is already so good.
Yeah, it's incredibly fascinating. I asked Kyle Stowers about it. Stowers has kind of seen, since the alternate site in Bowie in 2020, Stowers has been close to Gunnar, in that time. He's seen a jump, every year he's seen a jump. And this year, the major jump is the power. Obviously 28 home runs last year. The power was there last year, the last three quarters of the season, but we're seeing it at such a higher level of 15 and 40 some game, 44 games, I think it is. So he's on pace for 55, which would be a single season franchise record for Baltimore, which is, crazy to think. And I asked Gunnar, and I'll leave the curiosity gap, so hopefully people click on the article. But I asked him, what kind of hitter do you want to be? Actually, I asked, what kind of hitter are you? And he said he doesn't know what kind of hitter he is, but he knows who he wants to be. And that's really, an all-around hitter. He doesn't want to be just a slugger, doesn't want to be a long ball guy. He wants to hit for average and hit for power. And so far, we're seeing exactly that, where he can steal bases. He has 7 stolen bases, 15 homers, an OPS in the high 900s. I mean, geez, you're getting everything you want from Gunnar Henderson, and I think it would be really hard to say that he's not one of the best players in baseball, guaranteed. And he's a legitimate MVP contender for one of the best teams in baseball.
No question. He had 10 stolen bases in 150 games last year. He already has 7 this year and has yet to be caught. The weird thing is 15 homers and only 4 doubles so far, but he also has 4 triples. So he is showing off his wheels. And we know anytime he can take that extra base, he's going to take that extra base. Even if it means sacrificing a cycle, he will try to go for the triple. He has just been phenomenal at the top of the lineup. We've seen him move down near the bottom of the lineup or near the middle of the lineup at times, and he's done well there. Just great stuff. Good also to see over the weekend, Andy, and yesterday. Craig Kimbrel returned to the closer role and do well with a 3-run lead. 1-2-3 ninth inning yesterday in the series finale. Recorded his first save since May 3rd. Now, going back, he had that de facto blown save in Washington on May 8th, and we were on this podcast saying the Orioles have a serious Craig Kimbrel problem. The Orioles move him out of the closer role. He pitches the 7th inning on May 10th. That's scoreless. Pitches a scoreless 11th inning on May 11th. pitches a scoreless 7th inning on May 13th. And then yesterday they took the training wheels back off of Craig Kimbrel, put him into the closer role. It helped that they had a 3-run lead, but he did close the door. Some of his pitches may have been a little bit wild. He pulled some to the backstop. He was high and in on some batters as well. And his fastball was still, 94, 95. Do you think the Orioles were right to give him this opportunity again and to 2 weeks after he went through one of the toughest stretches of his career to throw him back into the 9th inning yesterday?
Yeah, sure. I mean, three-run lead. Quickly before I talk about Kimbrel, just a quick note. Cedric Mullins, that was a big game for him.
Huge.
Really scuffling of late. 2 hard hit singles for 2 RBIs. The 8th inning single he had to add on that third, the 3-run lead was because of Cedric Mullins in the 8th. If you don't have that 3-run lead, I mean, it's a lot nervier for Craig Kimbrel. So made it so much easier to go out there and say, okay, Craig can hold on to a 3-run lead. I think it was totally fair to give Craig that position back. And I think the best part was you mentioned the fastball velocity wasn't, what it has been in previous seasons. I don't think we're ever going to see that again.
No, it's
but
gone.
was the best part of that outing was that his breaking ball was again very good. He used it well. And so if he can have the breaking ball knuckle curve at a high level, it plays up his fastball. So it'll allow a 94 to be more deceiving and harder to catch up to when you're having, an 84 knuckle curve, 82 knuckle curve coming in before it. So that's the really important thing. And in Kimbrel's struggles, he got away from the breaking ball, didn't have feel for it. If he can establish that pitch, it unlocks everything for him. Yeah. So that was the major key, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I think that the Orioles at this point, we said it last week, they have to figure out what they have in Craig Kimbrel right now. Is he going to be their trusted closer the rest of the way and all the way through October? And the only way you can figure that out is to give him those opportunities again. I agreed with their decision to take him out of the closer role for that short time being, give him a little bit of a break, maybe remove some stress and some leverage from those situations that he was pitching in. But you have a couple months now before the trade deadline in which to decide whether you need a guaranteed closer, a bona fide closer. You need to acquire that guy at the deadline, or if you already have him in Craig Kimbrel. And the only way to figure that out is to keep pitching Craig Kimbrel in the 9th inning. Now, not every situation he's going to be thrown into is going to be a 3-run lead. So if the Orioles find themselves in a 1-run game tonight in St. Louis, do you expect the Brandon Hyde to once again call on Craig Kimbrel?
Absolutely. I think this is why you signed him. You're going to put him in these situations, and they're going to throw him out there. I don't have anything else to say, but
throw him
out there.
Well, and we'll see how it goes. In terms of the pitching staff right now, the Orioles are in a stretch right now. We were just looking at the schedule. First off, they have one scheduled off day in the entire calendar month of June. That is absurd. They have 4 off days in the month of April. They had 4 off days in the month of May. 1 off day in the month of June. It's not, the schedule is doing them no favors for the next month and a half.
Yeah, that's almost unheard of. 1 off day an entire month is pretty crazy. And it's not because of any rain delays that have been pushed into June that took an off day that would otherwise have been an off day. This is just the regularly scheduled calendar month of June. What it likely means is, Brandon Hyde has hinted at it. A 6-man rotation is what they're probably going to do, and they're gonna map it out around Corbin Burnes because they want Corbin Burnes in his normal rest on a 5-day rest. That's when he's at his best, and he's their ace. They're gonna map it out around him and then fill in Grayson, Kramer, John Means, and Cole Irvin as the other 5 guys beyond Corbin Burns. They're going to, basically place them in the right and Bradish. Yeah, sorry. And place them, in and around, the other days. And there's a lot of right now. We saw Cole Irvin come out of the bullpen for 2 innings last night. That's a short-term thing. He's probably going to be starting games again soon. He's had a great year, so probably deserves a spot in that 6-man rotation. Really, what the 6-man they try to think of it as, it's a way if you have starters going. If you have more starters, they can go deeper into games with a little bit more rest each of them. An extra day of rest for some of them. Maybe they can go an extra inning, and that saves you in the bullpen a little bit. Again, the alternate, of course, is that you technically have one fewer bullpen arm when you do a 6-man rotation. So it's a little bit of a give and take, but right now the O's are planning ahead on a 6-man rotation, which I don't mind at all as if they want to do it that way. They have 6 guys that can start games at a high level, so you can take advantage of that rotation depth.
Yeah, and Cole Irvin is, like you said, in the midst of a career year right now, and it is tough to remove him from a starting spot, but it's also nice to have a guy that can come in and pitch 2 innings like he did yesterday, and you can count on that guy to be solid for you. But if he's starting games, if he's in the bullpen, you're going to take advantage of the kind of season that Cole Irvin is having right now. In terms of that bullpen, the Orioles did lose an arm from that bullpen via DFA. Mike Baumann was DFA'd over the weekend. So was Ryan McKenna a few days before that. 2 guys, Mike Baumann and Ryan McKenna, who have been with this organization a long time, who have taken some flack from fans at times in their careers, but have been very solid soldiers for Brandon Hyde and for this organization the last several years. And I just want to take a moment to acknowledge both those guys because they were with this team through some dark times. Ryan McKenna, who just got claimed off waivers by the Giants, 4th rounder in the 2015 MLB draft. Debuted in 2021. He hit 224 with a 634 OPS and .6 WAR in 3 big league seasons. He played 282 games from 2021 to 2023. By my count, the only Orioles who played more games for the big league team in that stretch were Anthony Santander, Ryan Mountcastle, Austin Hayes, Cedric Mullins, and Ramon Arias. So he was playing a lot of games. He was playing in important games. He was so often a late game pinch runner, so often in late game defensive substitution. I don't want to talk about that final would-be dropped out in Boston a year ago. I'd rather talk about the good times like the walk-off home run against the Mariners last June. He was a solid depth piece for this organization, and he might eventually come back to this team via waiver claim, via free agent signing, because the Orioles certainly, I think you could say, Andy, appreciate what he gave this team and also the presence that he was in the clubhouse.
Yeah, I think there's a reason why a guy sticks around, and the clubhouse presence is a huge piece. You'd see it all the time. People, flummoxed as why Ryan McKenna was still here, but he was a good pinch runner. His defense at times was above league average, and at other times was kind of put in. Just like one thing about a defensive replacement. No, that's on top of my mind. I know I saw a lot of flack. McKenna would pretty recently. He had a troublesome route on a double that went over his head. Wasn't an error or anything. He didn't touch the ball. But you have to imagine at the same time, when you're a pinch hitter, you get into the batting cages underneath the stadium, and you see the machine. You see close in soft toss, whatever it is that you need to get ready, you can do that. When you're a defensive replacement, this is part of the challenge, is that you're coming in cold pretty much besides stretching. So it was always it's a challenging position to be in. and he did a pretty good job on the whole, as a defensive replacement, and was always a great guy to talk to in the clubhouse. One of my it's like a eulogy for Ryan McKenna. Like, what are we doing? But one of my favorite Ryan McKenna memories.
He's very much alive. I want to make this clear. He's just not with the Orioles anymore.
Yeah. My favorite Ryan McKenna memory is when Brandon Hyde walked by in the clubhouse, and Ryan McKenna's just like chilling on the couch or something, and he sees Brandon Hyde, and Ryan McKenna just goes, "Skip." And I just, for some reason, like, I've always remembered, like, for the rest of my life, when I think of Brandon Hyde, I think of Ryan McKenna going, "Skip."
I can do that next time I see Brandon Hyde.
You should. I would see what he says.
That would not go over well.
Yeah, he probably would punch me in the face. But
yeah,
but it's that, for some reason, one of my favorite memories of Ryan McKenna.
Yeah,
just a hilarious person, and was always a good person to talk to.
Definitely. Also, Mike Baumann, another guy that was with this team a long time. Two pretty young guys, to be clear. McKenna's 27, Baumann's only 28. Baumann hasn't been claimed by anybody as of right now, but he was DFA'd on Saturday. Third-round pick in 2017 from Jacksonville, where he played alongside Austin Hayes. Pitched 127 in a third innings over the last 4 seasons. 3.76 ERA last year, 3.44 so far this year, and 18 in the third innings. I know that whip was elevated, and I know he got into some troublesome spots, but another guy that contributed a good amount. The Orioles kept giving him opportunities because he flashed such great stuff, and because he was a prototypical, late inning reliever. He just never made the most of it, and it could clear waivers, could come back to this organization, could be called up from AAA Norfolk at some time later. But I think the DFAing of both these guys just kind of shows that it's another reminder that when the Orioles flipped that page into competitive baseball, you had to shed some top prospects like they did in the Corbin Burns trade, like when they traded away Joey Ortiz and DL Hall. But you also have to part ways with guys who have been with you through some dark days. We saw with Trey Mancini back in 2022, McKenna and Baumann over the last week. And we might have to see more of it. Maybe Ramon Urias, somebody like that, who was a quality depth piece for this team. But you have to make room for the better player. And at times you have to make room for the top prospect coming up. And so both those guys found their way at the moment on waivers.
Yeah, and Mike Baumann, he has such versatility. He could start games if you needed him. Give you multiple innings out of the bullpen. Could pitch high leverage innings. His last 4 appearances or so for Baltimore were phenomenal. I know, obviously had some struggles early in the year, but on the whole, I mean, another great pitcher that it's tough to lose guys like that because of the versatile aspect. I mean, you could rely on him for multiple innings out of the pen, and that was a great thing that I know Brandon Hyde valued. Mike Elias especially valued it. These are tough decisions, though, and it's not easy. I mean, Brandon said on Saturday after they made the move how it was a heavy heart, and it was a very difficult morning for a lot of people in that organization because you grow relationships with people. The stats are what they are, but Mike was a really loved guy in that organization, and hopefully for him, just for his sake, if he gets a chance in another organization and can really show what he's flashed it in Baltimore, if he can find that at a more consistent level with maybe a bigger opportunity somewhere else, I mean, great for him. But it's a challenge because this bullpen, there's only 2 guys with options available in this bullpen, Keegan Aiken and Yennier Cano. So we know Yennier Cano is not getting optioned to AAA unless something crazy happens. Keegan Aiken has like a sub-1 ERA in his last 6 innings. It's like he's pitching as well as he has all year. He's not necessarily a guy you want to get rid of when he's pitching as well as he is currently. And he's a lefty, and so that goes a long way. So there's not much bullpen flexibility. which is a challenge as you're shifting. Usually you have to shift guys, back. There's Tyler Wells that, who knows what his timeline looks like from the elbow injury. He's right now in Sarasota rehabbing. It'll be interesting to see how do they navigate this, because, Grayson coming back meant that Bauman had to get DFA'd. That's a tough trade. Obviously, you want Grayson back. He's your, I was gonna say ace, but obviously Burns is the ace. But Grayson is on the way there to ace status. Tough decisions ahead for this team, and there's going to be a lot more of them, as you said.
Yeah, and reminder, Dylan Tate is down in AAA Norfolk, another veteran who had options, so the Orioles had to exercise one of those and send him back down. And another guy who I think they would like to have back up at the big leagues at some point, but something has to give at the big league level in order for that to happen. And right now, nothing is. And unless you want to DFA somebody, you don't really have room for him.
Yeah, and this, knock on wood, injuries usually crop up at some point with relievers.
Sure.
There'll be more movement. There'll be injured lists. Dylan Tate will be back at some point. If Mike Bauman goes unclaimed, I'm sure he'll be back at some point. They really like his stuff, but
yeah,
it's a challenging situation at the moment, this roster construction.
Absolutely. Well, Andy, the Orioles have quite a long stretch before they have an off day, and then after that, not a whole lot off days remaining the rest of May and June. But they are in Chicago tonight. They're in St. Louis tonight. They're in St. Louis tonight to begin a 3-game series against the Cardinals. Then they're in Chicago for a 4-game series. Andy, at AF Kostka is his Twitter handle, and you can read all of his great work on the BaltimoreBanner.com. I'm at Paul Mancano. And, of course, Danielle Allentuck has you covered in St. Louis tonight. Andy will be there in Chicago. Kyle Goon is writing great columns on the BaltimoreBanner.com. Please like, review, rate, subscribe, all that good stuff. Give us a thumbs up. If you write us a good review, I'll read it out here on the show. Thanks so much for tuning in. For Andy Kostka, I'm Paul Mancano.